It's hard to believe, but you are on your last topic for Education 270. And today we're going to be wrapping up instruction with the organization and management of literacy instruction in elementary classrooms. And that's a mouthful, but we're really going to cover a wide variety of topics today in our presentation. We will start with our weekly message, and I want you to read through the message. And then at the bottom, your journal entry for the week is describe a variety of explicit instructional strategies that guide children's understanding and interaction of text. And throughout our presentation, I'm going to share with you a variety of different instructional practices that will allow you to have explicit instructional activities throughout your day. The first area we're going to look at is choosing a literacy program. Teachers must decide if they want to be guided reading teachers or Basal reading teachers for the overall reading program in their classroom. Click on the podcast at the bottom left corner, and this will give you instructions to guide you through the next part of our presentation. The first area we're examining is guided reading. And we're going to start with a KWL today. This KWL chart is on D2L in the weekly presentation file folder. And print it out. If you don't want to print it out, you can just make your own on notebook paper. And I want you to complete the K for what you think you know about guided reading, and also the W, what are you wondering about guided reading. I want you to keep it for later on in the presentation, and eventually we'll Dropbox pictures of it. To find out more about guided reading, I have a few resources for you. First, watch this video of a guided reading lesson. This is a first grade lesson. This is a lot like guided reading looks in the classroom. There's a couple kind of disclaimers that I want to put out. First of all, this teacher is using a canned guided reading program. Typically, teachers for guided reading get their own resources. They have their own small sets of books and they write their own lesson plans. This teacher has purchased her guided reading program through a textbook company, and you can tell because she has a teacher's manual in front of her. But it is a good model of guided reading and what it looks like during a lesson. I also want you to pay attention while you listen to what the rest of the class is doing during this time. Typically, teachers use this as their learning center time. I did not, and I want you to listen to the noise level of our other students during the lesson, and you can maybe understand why I chose not to do centers during guided reading. Also, if you haven't had a chance to read the article on D2L, What is Guided Reading, and page 290 to 97 in your textbook, those will help you answer the questions and the KWL chart. So through this process, add anything else that you want to know about guided reading, and then also fill out what you learned about guided reading. At the end of this process, I want you to highlight anything that you did not learn but you still want to know, and I will answer that for you when we post at the end of the week. We're going to try out what it's like to be a guided reading teacher. And this is a little complicated, but walk through it step by step with me. First of all, you need to go into D2L to the presentation file folder, and you're going to grab some resources that you'll need for this activity. You're going to grab the Stone Soup book, and you're going to grab the lesson planning form. Once you have those, and I really do recommend that you print them or at least have them up on your screen, then you'll go to EduCanon, and you're going to watch a video, and the video will pause and ask you questions, and you'll record your answers using the book and the planning sheet. When you're all finished, you will save your planning sheet for me for the Dropbox this week for your participation. At this point, you should be pretty much feel like you've learned a lot about guided reading. So fill out at least 2 things you've learned about guided reading and drop this in the weekly participation Dropbox. Now we're going to shift gears to the Basal reading program. This is another option that many teachers are using in their classroom. So first, you need to grab this web from D2L in our presentation file folder. Again, if you don't want to print it, you can make your own web on notebook paper. And if you haven't read the article, The Benefits of a Basal Reading Program, which is on D2L in the article folder, please do that now. As you learn about the Basal Reading Program, I'd like you to jot down information on the web. I'd like you to start on this slide by watching this video, and this will share what Basal reading materials look like. This is your traditional reading textbooks. They have come a long way from the old-fashioned Basal readers. I'm hoping to post a picture of the old-fashioned Basal readers on Facebook this week, and so you can see the changes that have occurred in this area. Then I'd like you to click right here, and this will take you to the actual publisher's website, and from that website you can kind of play around and explore the resources for different grade levels. Then I would like you to fill out your graphic organizer and share what you learned about the Basal reading program. This will go in the weekly participation drop box on D2L. At this point, you have the tools to make a decision. If you had a choice for the reading program you would choose for your classroom, would it be a Basal reading program, or would it be a guided reading program, or would it be a blend of both? And we do see that both will teach students to be readers. Both are viable options. It comes down to personal preference. Once you have your ideas, you're going to post to a Padlet board your choice and give 3 reasons why this is your choice of a literacy program. For more information, listen to the podcast. We're going to shift gears to reading and writing workshop. We're going to start with reading workshop, and in some classrooms it's now known as the Daily 5. Listen to the podcast and also take a minute to work through the slide. The podcast on this slide will tell you everything you need to know about Daily 5 check-in. There's a lot going on this slide, so I want to walk you through it. You'll start with the podcast, and this is really going to look at record keeping and organization for Daily 5 or reading workshop. Once you are working through the podcast, you will click on this folder. This will take you to a link to a blog of a teacher that has created resources for her Daily 5 classroom. Also, on D2L, we have, if you go into D2L, you have an example of work on writing activities. You're welcome to use that and save that. And also the weekly reading log that students independently use to share their reading. That is also for you on D2L. Again, these are great resources, so you may want to save them somewhere because it saves time. You can even pin them, and that way when it's time to use them, you don't have to create them new. We'll switch gears again from Daily 5 and Reading Workshop to Literacy Learning Centers, and this was probably one of my favorite times of the day. I also loved planning the learning centers because they were different for each group of learners I had. The podcast will explain to you how I organized and came up with the planning of my centers. And also this video will do a little show and tell of my learning centers for 1 week to match a theme. An important component of learning centers is organization, and listen to the podcast for an explanation of how we organize our students and our materials. And then this is the weekly assessment sheet, basically you can call it. The podcast will explain it in a little more detail. I have a blank copy for you to use if you want to save on D2L. And I also have a completed copy so you can see what it looks like when a teacher fills it out. It's very valuable to the students and also to the parents for communication. Now that you've seen all the different components, reading workshop, Daily 5, literacy learning centers, our guided reading time or our Basal reading time, how in the world do you fit all that in? So what I want you to do, and this is going to be just for fun, even though the podcast, which I do want you to listen to, says you should Dropbox it. You do not have to Dropbox it, but I do want you to think about the schedule. This handout is on D2L, or you can just handwrite it for yourself, or you can even do it mentally in your brain. But I want you to look at the components on the right and see how they would fit into the things that we're not going to change on the schedule. There's more than one answer, but when you move to the next slide, which I'm not going to do at this moment, there's another podcast, and it explains my reasoning for the way that I organized my schedule and gives you an indicator of what happens at each specific part of the day. Also, within the classroom organization, we have to think about how we want to store our materials and how we want to organize our desks and our centers and our tables. And so this video will walk you through the organization of the classroom. And start with the podcast, because this will explain what you're watching in the video. The last component is classroom design, which piggybacks on what you just learned, and you're going to try it out. So start with the podcast, follow the steps on the purple slide, use the link under the Design a Classroom picture, and post on Padlet. And the podcast will tell you all about that. This is it. This is your last weekly assignment. I've put it into two parts. Basically, we have our weekly journal entry, describe a variety of explicit instructional activities that guide children's understanding of and interaction of text. Also, for Pinterest this week, you need to pin 10 items for classroom management or organization. Please feel free to pin any of the materials that I shared with you in D2L. There is a way to upload those into Pinterest, into your folder, and that way you have them all in one place. Also, I have boards for classroom management and organization, and I know there's so many valuable resources on Pinterest. So find 10, and this is the culmination of our Pinterest project. So all I need you to do to share with me is to go to Pinterest and click on your Pinterest account. My account is jmyers5. So when I get to Pinterest, it has www.pinterest.com/jmyers5. You'll find whatever your address is on Pinterest, and you will put that address on the Dropbox. You can't physically Dropbox it, but you can put it in the notes section, and that will go to me, and then I can put your grade in for your Pinterest board. If you have any trouble, just let me know. I know once in a while someone has trouble doing this task and other people don't, and I don't know why from your end. So that should work for you, but if you have problems, let me know. Post it on the discussion board or send me a message. Last for assignments is to review for the final exam activity, and I will be putting kind of an outline of what I'd like you to look over for this in the weekly folder at the end of this. So that will be a way to prepare. Your final activity, just a little information, is not an exam. It is a game, but it is a timed game that we are all going to try to play collaboratively together. More information will come on that in the next couple days. Look in the news area, and I'll probably double up and put it on Facebook as well. I want participation, and I'd love if we could find a time that we could all do the game together. It might have to be in 2 sessions, but it's an interactive online game, and it'll be a great practice to review what you learned in this course. For your participation with our presentation this week, we have 2 in-presentation activities. You have a Padlet board on slide 10, which is where you will tell me which choice of literacy program, guided reading or Basal reading program you would choose. And also you have a Padlet board that shares your dream classroom on slide 19. The other participation is for your Dropbox, and you're going to drop me 3 things. You're going to drop the KWL chart once it's completed on guided reading, which takes up slides 4 and 7. And you're going to drop your web about the Basal reading program, which takes up slides 8 and 9. The last thing you're going to Dropbox is your EduCanon video that has the guided reading lesson planning sheet from slide 6. And that will be it for the semester. I told you at the beginning of the semester that this was going to be a wild ride. I know the 7-week course is very condensed, and I know it's very intensive in the amount of work you had to complete. I commend you because the work that you've given me is fantastic. And I can tell each week from your journal entries and from your even the questions you ask me, because you care so much about the assignments you turn in, that you are really learning so much. And I know you were overwhelmed at times, and I apologize. To be quite honest, I was overwhelmed with this course along with my other coursework, keeping up with you. Because I do want to give you a quality experience, and because I think reading and literacy instruction is so important. So give yourself a huge pat on the back, and I want to send you a hug too, because I am so proud of you. And I hope you enjoyed this course. I do look for feedback. I'll probably just post not a Padlet board, because you're probably really sick of them. I'll probably post a discussion board where you can put your feedback, and feel free to tell me anything you think that would help make this course better. And I would love your suggestions. You can't hurt my feelings. I have very thick skin. I just want to give you the best program that I can. So I leave you with that. Enjoy your last week of instruction, and congratulations.